Look at a world map. Trace your finger from the manufacturing titans of Asia, through the narrow choke point of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, up the Red Sea, into the Suez Canal, and out into the heart of the global economy in Europe and beyond. For decades, this thin blue line on the map has been the central nervous system of globalization, carrying everything: your car, your phone, your Christmas gifts, the energy that heats your home. Now, imagine someone putting a gun to the head of that system. Not with a declaration of war, but with cheap drones and missiles launched from the shores of Yemen. This is the Red Sea crisis. You're being told it's about Gaza, about regional spillover. That's the political cover story. But pull back the economic curtain, and you'll see this for what it truly is: the first great battle of a hidden multi-trillion-dollar trade war. A war where the weapons are shipping containers, the currency is insurance premiums, and the victor will reshape the world's economic map for a century. Stay with me, because the real story is not on the nightly news. It's on the balance sheets of the world's most powerful corporations and nations. Where are you watching from right now? What time is it? Drop a comment and let me know. If you're here for deep dives that connect geopolitics to your wallet and your world, make sure you're part of this community. Hit subscribe, ring that notification bell, and let's get into it. To understand why a handful of attacks off the coast of Yemen can threaten the global economy, you must first grasp the sheer, staggering value of this maritime highway. Approximately 12% of global trade, 30% of global container traffic, and a vital artery for oil and liquefied natural gas (LNG) flows through the Red Sea and Suez Canal. In raw numbers, over $1 trillion in goods annually. Every day of disruption doesn't just delay a shipment. It acts like a virus, injecting chaos into the meticulously timed, just-in-time circulatory system of modern capitalism. A single ship stuck waiting is a floating warehouse of delayed parts, causing factory slowdowns thousands of miles away. But this crisis isn't an accident of war. It's a targeted, calculated economic siege with profound beneficiaries hiding in plain sight. The immediate, visible beneficiaries are the world's shipping and logistics giants. When the Houthi militants began their campaign of attacking commercial vessels in late 2023, the response from the major container lines Maersk, MSC, Hapag-Lloyd, and CMA-CGM was swift. They rerouted traffic around the Cape of Good Hope in southern Africa. This is not a minor detour. It adds 3,000 to 3,500 nautical miles and 7 to 14 days to a journey from Asia to Europe. Instantly, the calculus of global shipping changed. Fuel consumption soars by 40% per trip. Crew wages and vessel operating costs explode. The capacity of the global fleet is effectively slashed as ships are tied up on these much longer voyages. And what happens when supply plummets and demand remains constant? Prices rocket. Freight rates from Asia to Europe quadrupled, even quintupled, in a matter of weeks. A container that cost $1,500 to ship in November suddenly costs $7,000 by January. For these publicly traded shipping conglomerates, this is a windfall of historic proportions. They are not victims of this crisis. They are its primary economic arbitrageurs. They pass the costs directly to their customers. Every major retailer and manufacturer on the planet, while their profit margins swell. They enjoy a perfect storm, a justified war risk surcharge that customers must accept, coupled with reduced operating costs on the longer Cape route, no Suez Canal. Transit fees of $500,000, $1 million per ship. Their stock prices tell the story while the world panics about inflation. The shipping sector has been one of the best performing in the market. They profit from the fear, but the shipping lines are just the most visible layer. Dive deeper into the shadow financiers of risk, the insurance market. Every vessel transiting a war zone must pay a war risk insurance premium. These premiums, set by a specialized committee in London known as the Joint War Committee, went from a nominal fee to a massive surcharge overnight. Insurers and reinsurers, like Lloyd's of London syndicates, are now collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars extra per voyage for the same ships crossing the same water. It's pure, risk-based profit. Furthermore, the marine insurance market, covering the cargo itself, also sees skyrocketing rates. This massive, often opaque, financial industry is extracting a direct toll from global trade, padding its bottom line with every healthy missile launch. The crisis has become a predictable revenue stream for the lords of leverage in the City of London and beyond. Now, let's follow the redirected money. The rerouting around Africa is not just a cost. It's a multi-billion-dollar reallocation of global transport expenditure. Who benefits from the Cape route? South Africa becomes a critical refueling and resupply hub. Ports like Durban and Cape Town see increased traffic, generating fees and local economic activity. The shipping bunker fuel markets in Singapore and Fujairah shift as vessels take on more fuel for the longer journey. Russian and African crude oil traders have found new, eager buyers for their oil in Asia, as traditional routes are disrupted and regional demand patterns twist. This isn't just disruption. It's a forced replumbing of the global energy trade, creating new winners in unexpected places. But to see the true architects of this hidden trade war, you must lift your eyes from the sea lanes to the great power competition shaping this century. This is where the narrative of Houthi rebels acting in solidarity with Gaza meets cold, hard strategic calculus. The Houthis are not an isolated militia. They are a sophisticated armed proxy of Iran. And Iran's strategic goal is not simply to support Hamas, it is to project power, challenge its regional rivals, and, most critically, strike a blow against the economic stability of the West and its allies, particularly Saudi Arabia. For Saudi Arabia, the Red Sea crisis is a geopolitical and economic nightmare, the centerpiece of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's vision for the future. The $500 billion NEOM Megacity project is being built on the Red Sea coast. Its entire economic rationale depends on stable trade, tourism, and investment flowing through that water. Attacks on shipping scare away the very international capital and talent the project needs to survive. Furthermore, Saudi Arabia's ambitious plan to become a global logistics hub, connecting Asia to Europe, is directly undermined when the primary route it seeks to service is considered a war zone. Iran, through its Houthi proxy, is effectively holding a knife to the throat of Saudi Arabia's post-oiled economic future. This is economic warfare by proxy, with Riyadh as the primary target. The crisis also delivers a brutal blow to Egypt, a key Iranian rival and a historic ally of Saudi Arabia. The Suez Canal is Egypt's financial lifeline, a source of nearly $10 billion in annual revenue. Since the diversions began, canal revenues have plummeted by 40 to 50%. This is a catastrophic blow to an Egyptian economy already teetering on the brink of collapse, reliant on foreign loans and Gulf bailouts. By disrupting the Suez, Iran weakens Cairo, destabilizes a U.S. partner, and creates another crisis on Saudi Arabia's flank. The Houthis' cheap drones are achieving what decades of Iranian statecraft could not, crippling the economies of their two greatest regional rivals without firing a single shot directly. And then, there is the great game with China. China has invested heavily in its Belt and Road Initiative BRI, with the Suez route being a critical maritime corridor. But China is also playing both sides. It maintains strong diplomatic and economic ties with Iran, the Houthis' patron. Interestingly, Chinese and Russian-linked vessels have largely been spared from Houthi attacks, suggesting a chilling level of coordination, or at least communication. This allows Chinese shipping to potentially gain a competitive advantage. moving goods more cheaply and reliably through the Suez while its Western competitors are forced onto the costly Cape route. Is China actively encouraging this? Possibly not. But is it leveraging the crisis to weaken Western economic dominance and demonstrate the fragility of U.S.-secured sea lanes while positioning itself as a potential regional mediator? Absolutely. The crisis tests American power and will, and China watches, fought with missiles in the Red Sea. It's being fought with fiber optic cables, trade agreements, and radical new supply chain blueprints in corporate headquarters from Silicon Valley to Shenzhen. This is the story of how a regional conflict is becoming the catalyst for the greatest re-engineering of global trade since the invention of the container ship itself, the first and most powerful corporate response is the accelerated death of just-in-time and the birth of just-in-case. For 50 years, the reigning philosophy of global business has been lean, efficient, and fragile. Why keep a huge inventory of parts when you can have them arrive from a factory in Vietnam exactly when you need them on your assembly line in Germany? The Red Sea crisis, following the supply chain chaos of the COVID-19 pandemic, has delivered the final, undeniable proof. This model is broken. The single point of failure represented by the Suez Canal is too great a risk. The cost savings of hyper-efficiency have been vaporized by the multi-million-dollar detours and delays. So, what are the world's largest corporations doing? They are undertaking the Great Diversification. This isn't just finding a second supplier. It's building redundant, parallel supply chains. It's called friendshoring or nearshoring. Apple isn't just making iPhones in China anymore. It's aggressively building capacity in India and Vietnam. Tesla, GM, and Ford are not just betting on electric vehicles. They are building the battery and component ecosystems for those vehicles in Mexico, the United States, and Europe, specifically to avoid long, vulnerable sea lanes from Asia. This monumental shift is a multi-trillion-dollar investment flowing away from the traditional East-West trade corridor. The beneficiaries: Mexico, India, Vietnam, Eastern Europe, and even parts of the United States experiencing a manufacturing renaissance. The Red Sea attacks didn't start this trend, but they have supercharged it with the urgency of a ticking clock. Every day a ship is delayed as a day a CEO signs off on a new factory closer to home. This geographic shift is being underwritten by a parallel revolution in trade, finance, and data. When your supply chain spans the globe, visibility is everything. New companies are rising to power by selling resilience. Firms like Flexport and Project 44 offer digital platforms that don't just track containers, but use AI to predict delays, model alternative routes, and dynamically manage inventory across this new, dispersed network. The money in trade is increasingly in the data and software that manages the physical flow, not just the flow itself. The crisis has made their services not a luxury, but a survival necessity. And venture capital is flooding into this sector now. Let's talk about the most audacious physical project being revived from the dustbin of history: overland trade corridors. If the sea is vulnerable, what about the land? Suddenly, ancient Silk Road routes, supercharged by modern infrastructure, look not just viable, but vital. Two corridors are experiencing a gold rush of political and financial backing: the India-Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, announced at the G20 just months before the Red Sea crisis. This US and EU-backed plan is a direct challenge to Chinese influence. It envisions a connected rail and shipping route from India, through the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel, to Europe. The Red Sea crisis has transformed IMEC from a diplomatic memo into a strategic imperative. The billions promised for its ports, railways, and pipelines now look like a brilliant insurance policy against maritime blockade. For Saudi Arabia and the UAE, This is their chance to pivot from victims of the Red Sea chaos to masters of a new, protected land bridge. Their sovereign wealth funds are ready to write the checks. The Northern East-West Corridor. This is Russia and China's answer, even amidst the Ukraine war. The development of Arctic shipping lanes, the Northern Sea Route, and the expansion of the Trans-Russian Railway network are aimed at creating a Suez-independent pathway. While sanctions complicate this, the long-term strategic intent is clear: to build trade infrastructure that bypasses Western-controlled choke points altogether. The Red Sea crisis is a potent advertisement for this alternative, even if its full viability is years away. Herein lies the core of the hidden trade war. IMEC versus the Northern Corridor. It's not just a choice of route. It's a choice of geopolitical camp. It's Washington and Brussels versus Moscow and Beijing, with the future of Eurasian trade as the prize. The Houthi attacks are actively clarifying this choice for every multinational corporation on Earth. You cannot rely on a single, neat, vulnerable sea lane. You must pick a side in the new infrastructure of trade. But what about energy? The most immediate commodity shock? The rerouting of tankers has spooked markets. But it has also unveiled a staggering new economic reality: the strategic power of American LNG, as European gas prices jump on fears of disruption. The United States finds itself in an energy kingmaker position. American liquefied natural gas shipped from the Gulf Coast can sail directly to Europe via the Atlantic, completely untouched by Middle Eastern chaos. The Red Sea crisis is the ultimate sales pitch for U.S. energy exports, locking in long-term contracts with European nations desperate to forever break their dependence on Russian pipelines. It strengthens the transatlantic alliance, not just diplomatically, but through hardened energy arteries. The crisis is a multi-billion-dollar advertisement for the profitability and security of the American fossil fuel industry at a critical moment. Finally, we must return to the perpetrators and their patron. Why would Iran risk such a blatant act of economic terrorism? Beyond hurting Saudi Arabia, the goal is asymmetric leverage. Iran is negotiating with the world's economy as its hostage. Every day, the crisis continues. The pressure mounts on the United States and its allies to make concessions elsewhere, perhaps on nuclear program oversight, on sanctions relief, on regional influence. The Houthi attacks are a cost-effective way for Tehran to scream, "You cannot ignore us." Our proxies can reach out and touch the thing you hold most dear: your money. It's a gamble that the West's economic pain threshold is lower than its willingness to commit to a full-scale regional war. So, who ultimately wins in this hidden trade war? The logistics and tech oligarchs, shipping magnates, data platform owners, and insurers making fortunes from chaos. The diversifiers, nations like India, Mexico, and Vietnam absorbing the trillion-dollar supply chain shift. The infrastructure builders, the Gulf states and great powers funding the new overland corridors. The energy sovereigns, the United States, and to a degree Qatar, as providers of secure, crisis-proof energy. The asymmetric adversaries, Iran, and by extension, its allies, who gain outsized geopolitical leverage for a minimal investment. The losers are the everyday consumers facing higher prices, the stability of the global economic order, and any notion that trade can be separated from high-stakes geopolitics. The Red Sea crisis has ripped off the Band-Aid. It has shown that our globalized world was built on a foundation of fragile assumptions, peaceful passage, stable tariffs, predictable routes. That era is over. We are now in the dawn of the age of resilient trade. It will be more expensive, more politicized, and more fragmented. It will have winners and losers, not just in boardrooms, but in entire nations. The missiles over the Red Sea weren't just targeting ships. They were targeting the very logic of a connected world. And in the rubble of that old logic, the new economic order is being built: one detour, one data point, one diplomatic deal at a time. This is the reality they aren't telling you on the mainstream news. The story isn't in Yemen. It's in the rerouted shipping lanes, the frantic factory relocations, and the high-stakes bets on new maps. If your understanding of the world has shifted, your voice matters. Share this analysis. Break the cycle of simplistic headlines. Demand that leaders recognize this for what it is, not a regional skirmish, but the opening battle for the future of global commerce. The choices made now will define our economic landscape for generations. Like, share, and subscribe.